This video is sponsored by Clean My Mac X. Hey, what's going on, people? Hope you guys are doing good. Today, we're talking iPad. I gotta say, the M1 iPad Pro is probably the most controversial iPad I've seen in a long time. More YouTubers in specific have returned this iPad more so than any other iPad that I've ever seen. In this video, we're gonna do things a little bit different. Rather than me telling you why I returned my iPad, I'm gonna tell you why I kept it and why you might wanna consider keeping yours. But before we do that, let me tell you a little bit more about this video's sponsor, Clean My Mac X. It's an all-in-one application that will help keep your Mac running at its best. It's packed full of features, including ones for protection, such as malware removal and privacy scanning. This lets you know which apps have access to your camera and microphone at all times. If your Mac is running sluggish, Clean My Mac can help with speed by running the optimization or maintenance features. While the user interface is extremely simple, some may find it a little confusing if you're new to this type of application. If you fall into that category, all you need to do is run the Smart Scan feature. It will clean up junk files that are hard to find on your own, optimize system performance, and scan for malware in a matter of seconds with a single click of a button. For more information, including a free 30-day trial, make sure to hit the link in the description. So I guess I need to preface this video by saying I didn't upgrade from the 2020 iPad Pro. I upgraded from the 2018 model. Therefore, there were more reasons for me to upgrade, such as performance improvements, the spec bump, and the display itself. Let's talk about a few of those things now, because it's about to rain. Let's start with the display of this new iPad Pro. Now, there's been a lot of controversy about it, saying that it actually has more blooming than the 2020 model. Being that I never owned the 2020 model, I did borrow it for a while and I used it. I can say compared to the 2018 model, the blooming is more noticeable, but it's more well controlled on this display simply because the blacks are super black on the M1 iPad Pro. And this is all due to the mini LED technology. So because of those blacks and them getting so dark and so inky, you're going to see the blooming a little bit more, making it a little bit more noticeable due to the contrast ratio. That doesn't mean the blooming is worse on this iPad. Overall, the display is incredible. I would say it's really close to OLED. It's almost there. Once they can get the blooming controlled, it'll definitely be on that OLED level. Plus, you still get the 120 Hz ProMotion display, which makes it great for gaming and doing things that have a lot of fluid motion. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some coffee real quick. I do gotta say though, another thing about this display is how bright it gets. It gets super bright, which brings me to the next point, and that's the XDR display on the M1 iPad Pro. It's really nice. Let's talk about that for a minute. So when it comes to the XDR display and the mini LED technology on the M1 iPad Pro, it gets incredibly bright. And this makes it useful not only for consuming content out in direct sunlight on bright days. Being in Florida, I take advantage of that quite a bit. It's also great when you pair the iPad Pro with your MacBook or your iMac and you want to edit HDR footage and you don't have an HDR monitor, because technically this is your HDR monitor. It can go all the way up to 1500 nits, so you can really edit HDR footage taken on your iPhone. You don't even have to have a special crazy expensive camera. You can just use your iPhone, which now shoots Dolby Vision video, and you can edit it using your XDR iPad Pro and deliver HDR content, which is awesome. Another thing that's great about this super bright display and it being a non-OLED panel, instead they're using mini LED technology, is you get really good viewing angles. So even if I'm kind of looking at the display from the side while editing and using this as an external display, I could still make out the content on the display, which is great. So while I'm sitting here getting some work done, I just realized how great it is to use this iPad outside at a coffee shop due to how bright the display gets. Since I'm able to mirror my MacBook Pro display onto my iPad, it allows me to edit in Lightroom and Photoshop using the Apple Pencil for fine-tuned edits much easier due to how bright this panel gets. Needless to say, I think you should know by now I'm a huge fan of the display on the new M1 iPad Pro. I know this is specific to the 12.9 inch. Unfortunately, that's something that I really wish Apple would have done with the 11 inch, because I would have went with that smaller form factor. But that XDR mini LED display, in my opinion, is awesome. Despite what a lot of people are saying about the blooming issue, I think it's a great display, and it's helped me out a lot when it comes to getting things done outside, just to get some fresh air at coffee shops and stuff like that. So of course, this being an M1 iPad Pro, it has the M1 processor. Duh, it's in the title. That means this is an extremely powerful iPad Pro. In fact, I haven't come across anything in the App Store that can actually take advantage of all that power. That's not to say I'm not thankful for it though. That means I don't have to get next year's iPad Pro, or if they come out with an iPad Pro the following year, I don't have to buy that one because this M1 is going to be completely fine for the next few years. So it's kind of like a future-proof investment in a way, even though I don't like that word when it comes to tech, because future-proofing tech is really not possible because tech is always evolving. This allows me to edit high-resolution photos easily. So if I'm taking pictures from the A7R4, for example, which has a 60 megapixel sensor, this iPad can easily edit raw photos from that camera. In fact, I've even edited Fuji GFX 100 photos on this iPad, which have 100 megapixels, and the raw format is incredibly intense on the processor, and this iPad does it easily. For video editing, you can edit in LumaFusion all day long, 4K timelines, even 6K timelines with a little bit of finessing. Plus, to go along with that performance, I know the new version of iPadOS, I believe Apple is actually unlocking the ability for developers to take advantage of 16 gigabytes of RAM. Right now, it's capped at like 4 or 6, I believe. So with this new iPadOS update, you can actually take advantage of all of that RAM, which is going to be really, really cool, especially for apps like Lightroom, Photoshop, and LumaFusion, things that can take up a lot of system resources. So I'm really looking forward to that. Being that I came from the 2018 iPad Pro, I did not have the Lidar sensor on my previous iPad. And with the new M1 iPad Pro, you do get the Lidar sensor, you get improved cameras. And even though I'm not an advocate for taking pictures or recording videos on an iPad, it is great for gaming because of all of the 3D depth sensing technology that Lidar brings. You could really do some awesome AR stuff. The Lidar sensor and AR capabilities combined with this large 12.9-inch display means that gaming is going to be immersive because you're able to do depth sensing and 3D scans of your environment and then get your game on that way. But a more practical use, especially for adults, is going to be placing furniture in a room before you buy that furniture to see what it's going to look like. You can even remodel an entire room thanks to the AR capabilities of the Lidar sensor, and you can really get a feel for everything using the large display. I really appreciate that. Speaking of all the camera improvements, the front-facing camera has also been upgraded, and I really, really like it. It's now an ultra-wide camera, and they added a feature called Center Stage, which I've been using a lot. It makes FaceTime calls or FaceTime video calls and Skype video calls much, much better by cropping in on that ultra-wide angle sensor, and then it follows you around, keeping you in center, hence the name Center Stage, at all times. So you're not just locked down to one area. You can walk around your kitchen while cooking and then chatting with your friends and family, which is extremely important in this day and age. So my experience with the M1 iPad Pro has been mostly positive. I guess the only downside to this iPad I can think of would be price. But since I came from the 2018 model, that price is justifiable given all the performance improvements. Plus, I traded in my 2018 model and got a substantial discount on the 2021 M1 iPad. I guess if I were to upgrade from the 2020 model, I probably would be in the same boat, given that the performance improvements aren't as significant and the differences in terms of the display and everything else just aren't as prominent as the 2018 versus the 2021. But I didn't. I went from 2018 to 2021, and my experience has been awesome. I love this iPad. But there's one more reason why I did not return this, and it's probably the biggest one so far. And that reason is I missed my return window. I missed my return window, so I am stuck with this iPad. All in all, I'm really happy with the M1 iPad Pro, at least the 12.9 inch. I really wish the 11 inch did have that XDR display. I would have went with the smaller form factor, but this one has been perfect. I love it for all of its potential and all of its current capabilities. Let me know what you guys think of the 12.9 inch M1 iPad Pro. Did you pick one up? If you did, what are your thoughts? Did you return it? If you didn't return it, why did you keep it? I want to know. Sound off down below in the comment section. Huge shout out to Clean My Mac X for sponsoring this video. Make sure to click the link down in the description if you feel like checking them out and protecting your Mac. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Deuces.